Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula.
And today we're going to talk about Nosferatu 2024, the latest remake of the 1922 silent film from writer-director Robert Eggers, who most of you know as the writer-director of The Witch and The Lighthouse. Which, if you've seen those two films, he's kind of the perfect man to direct this movie.
Yeah.
Because between the black and white gothic horror of
The Lighthouse
and the kind of like slow burn gothic horror of The Witch.
Yeah, he was perfect. And in many ways, this is not just Nosferatu. This is Nosferatu 3.
Yes, there is Nosferatu from 1922.
Yeah, the Murnau one.
Yep. It was made because they didn't have the rights to Dracula, but they wanted to tell the Dracula story anyway. So it's basically Dracula with all the serial numbers filed off.
Yeah, all the names have been changed to protect the motherfuckers.
There is a couple major differences that we'll talk about later in this vlog because they do come into play with how this movie approaches the material.
Yeah, there are differences between the Murnau, Nosferatu, and Dracula.
And there is the 1979 Werner Herzog remake of Nosferatu, which is iconic as fuck, and I highly recommend.
Yeah.
And now we got a modern take. It kind of harkens back to something like Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s.
It is the Bram Stoker's Dracula of this decade. Absolutely.
It is a rather big budget by Robert Eggers standards.
Yes.
Movie that is huge and gothic and theatrical and over the top, but in all the best ways.
Yeah, it's very obvious that Robert Eggers loves himself some Ingmar Bergman, which heavily comes into play in this. Like, Lighthouse is a love letter to Bergman.
Oh yeah, 100%. And there's sequences within this movie that 100% are too.
Oh yes.
I would argue the nightmarish way he portrays the trip to Count Orlok's castle in this.
Oh yeah.
Feels very Bergman.
It's very Bergman.
One of the things he does with this movie is he takes one of the major conceits of the original Nosferatu, which is the use of light and shadow.
Yeah.
And kind of takes it to the extreme in this movie.
Yeah. He uses the shadow of Count Orlok more often than it is even used in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. Count
Orlok's silhouette in this movie is a weapon.
Yes, a weapon and a character in and of itself.
It is not just him being off screen with like a harsh light on him and you just can't see it. He is literally moving in the shadows throughout this movie.
Yes. As you can see, it's got that like hand.
Oh yeah.
Moving, over the city.
What they don't show you in the trailer is that shot begins with Count Orlok looking out a window over the city.
Yeah.
And then you see the shadow extend over it as he reaches out to a certain character that we'll talk about in the spoiler section.
Yeah.
I don't know how much we can spoil because it is a classic story. It is two classic stories in one.
Yes.
The Nosferatu film and the original Dracula book, which this movie actually adapts more of that book into the Nosferatu story.
It does.
What there is, which there wasn't in the original Nosferatu, is a Van Helsing character.
Yes.
There is a Van Helsing stand-in in this movie. He's not called that, but he's 100% that character, played by William Dafoe.
Yeah.
This version, they very much emphasize the fact that he was a scholar, a very highly regarded scholar, who was then less regarded the more he fell into alchemy. Becomes very important in this story because they kind of need that alchemic knowledge in order to battle one Nosferatu.
Yeah, the Romani sections.
Oh, yeah.
Because
the ominous Romani, as I call them.
Ominous Romani, yeah, because the depiction of Count Orlok himself is completely in line with the folklore.
Well, the depiction of Count Orlok himself in this is also very much in line with the source material.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil for you exactly how he looks in the non-spoiler section. We'll talk about it in the spoiler section.
Yeah, the trailer hid what he looks like.
Exactly.
So we're not going to spoil that here.
But what I will say is if you have read the book, it is the closest to the design described in that book than any adaptation I've seen so far has done, with the exception of certain ones that we'll talk about later because they give away the look. But
Yeah. But one of the big things within Romani lore, the Strigoi, or the Nosferatu with the vampire, is an evil creature of disease.
And that's very apparent in the design of the Nosferatu in this movie. Count Orlok does look very diseased.
Yeah, he looks very diseased, and that is also the reason why the vampire is warded off by garlic, because it is a medicinal herb. That's a Romani thing.
Makes sense. And speaking of disease, one of the things this movie does is it makes the coming plague of the Nosferatu a literal plague.
Yeah. What is his name? He talks like this.
Werner Herzog.
Not even the Werner Herzog one went into the plague that the vampire brings like this movie did.
He alluded to it.
Yeah, he alludes to it.
He has that iconic shot of all the rats coming off the boat, flooding the fucking city.
Yeah, but you don't see people like dying of the plague.
Yes.
Like, in the streets and the carts coming going like, bring out your dead, and all that shit.
Well, the city in this movie is almost a character in and of itself. There's a lot of stuff happening in the background of the primary character shots that is telling you a little bit of what's happening throughout the city without ever having a character coming up on screen and going, this is what's happening in the city.
Yeah,
You just see people protesting in the back and you go like, okay, all right, obviously they're mad about like the ships no longer being sailing.
Yeah.
What's going on. The cinematography in this movie is some of the best Robert Eggers has done in his filmography yet.
Yes.
I do not know who the exact cinematographer is, but whomever it is, I hope he continues to work with them.
Yeah, one of the other things that I love is you don't notice it until you notice it. But the film goes from muted to full color depending on what's going on.
Oh yeah. There are times where it's just like nearly black and white.
Yeah, particularly like in the journey up to the castle, it's almost all black and white.
If you're a fan of night shots being blue, then you're going to love this movie because he does that a lot throughout this movie.
Oh, yeah.
To kind of evoke that almost black and white kind of feeling for the night shots.
Yeah, and it works super well.
It does.
Super cool.
It's awesome. The other thing about this movie is that it is filled wall to wall with powerhouse performances. To put it lightly, Nicholas Hoult is like the weakest actor in this entire movie, and he would have been the best actor in most movies if he gave this performance in other movies.
Yeah.
But he's acting alongside Lily Rose Depp.
This isn't like her debut performance, but like this is the performance that can put her on the map.
Her debut performance was in Tusk and in Yoga Hosers. This is the movie that shows, oh no, I am my father's daughter.
Yeah. I have the talent.
I got
can do
it.
Yeah.
She gives an amazing performance and outclasses some of the veterans she's acting alongside.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fucking impressive.
Yeah, although you gotta give it up to the Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe is having a ball in this movie, playing this like, he's not crazy, but he's definitely unhinged.
Yeah, he's
professor.
He is the perfect mystic shaman wizard guy.
Absolutely. It's probably one of my favorite Van Helsing-esque character performances I've seen in any of these movies. And that's saying a lot because there's been a lot of great actors who've done great Van Helsing performances.
Well, my previous favorite was Anthony Hopkins.
Oh yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, I like this one more.
Yep.
I like this one more. I love this not Van Helsing.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely. And of course, like he's constantly acting alongside the dude with the voice from The Witch, the dad.
Ralph Innes.
Ralph Ineson. Yeah. The human subwoofer, as one of the people commenting on one of my skeets about the movie said. And then, of course, you have the one, the only Bill Skarsgård, who completely disappears into the role of Count Orlok, partially because he's so caked in makeup you can't even tell it's him anymore.
Yeah, but like there's nothing to tell you that it's Bill Skarsgård.
But much like
not even his performance.
Yeah, well, much like his performance with Pennywise, he puts on a very distinct voice and a very distinct posture and mannerisms that are very not his normal mannerisms. Posture and speech.
But even in Pennywise, if you were familiar with him, you could see him in the behind the makeup. This one, no, he just disappears. He just utterly disappears.
The one thing I will say about his performance, and this isn't really a criticism, it's just a note. When he's speaking, I think it's German in the movie, whatever the foreign language he's speaking, he's scary as shit when he's talking in that language.
Yes.
When he speaks in English, he's like one step removed from Vlad from What We Do in the Shadows. Keep expecting him to just turn around and go like, I'm gonna do my dark bidding on the internet.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
So if you have not seen the original 1922 Nosferatu or the remake, it has a very different ending from the original Dracula story, which we'll talk about in the spoiler section, because if you haven't seen those two things, then I do not want to spoil it for you.
It has an amazing last shot.
Oh yeah. The last shot is practically a punchline.
Yeah.
But I can't give away the punchline until we get to the spoiler section.
Yeah.
Nosferatu gets a full recommendation from me. I absolutely adored this movie. It is one of the best movies of the year, and also one of the last movies of the year.
Yeah, Nosferatu Bat also loved it.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. If you want to go see it, you're going to have to go see it in theaters, so go check it out.
Which we recommend. We recommend seeing it on a big screen.
I recommend it on the big screen for one main reason above all else. The movie looks perfect in theaters, but I think if you have a shitty calibrated TV and you go to watch it on that, it might be too dark to see what's happening sometimes.
Yeah, it might be. The reason I say see it in the theaters is there are a lot of fucking shots that are intended to overwhelm you.
That's true. That's true.
Like just seeing the one with that you saw in the trailer with the hand on the big screen, you're like, oh shit.
And so with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, let us move on to the spoilers. So if you haven't seen the original Nosferatu ends with the female character, the Mina Harker stand-in, sacrificing herself in order to kill Count Orlok. And the way she does this is she essentially gives her body up to Count Orlok, who then goes to take her, and the sun comes up, and he is turned to dust from the sun. Now, this is a very important piece of vampire history because up until this point, vampires did not burn up in the sun.
No, this is the first time. This is the first major time it happens.
Dracula does not burn up in the sun. It's not a thing from the original book. Later adaptations would add that.
Yeah.
Kind of like Nosferatu did.
Yeah.
But the original Dracula did not. This movie maintains that original ending, but it takes it the next step further by having it be a full-on sex scene.
Yeah.
There is a sex scene with a monster at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
That saves the day. It saves the world, in fact.
Yes. One of the things I love about Robert Eggers' sex scenes, it's always just it's the pure animal desire between the two people.
Oh yeah, because usually that's what it is in his movies.
Yeah, and he does that here. In fact, there are two major sex scenes in this movie.
There is. One of them is actually my favorite scene in the whole movie. It's a scene that starts off as like this kind of romantic, touching scene between her and her husband, played by Nicholas Hoult, as they're reunited after he went missing going to see Count Orlok. And it turns into like an argument, and then turns into like just a full-on fuck fest.
Yeah, because she's trying to get Orlok out of her head.
Yeah.
And the only thing that can do that is her husband.
Yep.
My favorite acting moment is when she's insulting him to try to get him to fuck her.
Yeah.
And I was like,
it's a fantastic scene.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the scenes from the original Dracula that ended up in this movie that wasn't in the original Nosferatu, there is a Renfield stand-in in this movie who bites the head off of a pigeon.
Oh man, that guy is great.
He's great.
Yeah.
Another veteran actor giving a powerhouse performance.
Yeah, like another one where I'm like, Dracula movies. Most of them have amazing Renfields.
Oh yeah.
You've got Dwight Fry, the classic. You know. Then you got Tom Waits in the Francis Ford Coppola one. Now you got this guy, and they're all real different.
Oh yeah.
They're all super different.
Don't forget Nicholas Hoult.
And then Nicholas Hoult played Renfield in Renfield.
Hail Satan! Orlok's look in this movie.
Yeah.
He looks like a disease-ridden Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
He's got the big imposing build with the big fucking coat.
Yeah.
And like his face has like all this makeup on, so it looks like those paintings of Vlad the Impaler.
He doesn't look like the Murnau or Max Schreck Nosferatu. He looks like Vlad the Impaler.
And the thing that harkens him back to the original novel is he has one thing that most adaptations of Dracula do not include. The original description of Dracula includes an epic mustache.
Yes. Yes.
And he's got one in this, a Vlad the Impaler mustache.
Yeah, exactly. He does.
Now, there are some adaptations that do give him this, but it's usually adaptations where they directly have him be Vlad the Impaler, so they show flashbacks of him as Vlad.
Right. A lot of people loved it, but also hated it.
Oh, yeah.
But because they were like, on the one hand, I am so impressed, but on the other hand, I've finally seen a version of Dracula that I wouldn't want to fuck.
But on the other hand, there's a bunch of people who still want to fuck him.
Yes.
So,
yes.
You know?
Yes.
It takes all kinds.
Yeah. Couple of things going on. One, You can almost smell him through the screen.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that looks bad. Mm-hmm. The other is you can imagine like touching him would be either cold and stiff or kind of slimy and viscous.
Oh God, when she's like actually wrapping her arms around him.
He's got those sores all over his body.
It's gnarly. The other thing about him is if you look at him, especially in that wide shot at the end where it's just like a shot looking down on the two of them on the bed, he looks so frail.
Yeah.
And sickly.
Yeah.
And like his legs are way too small. He's almost got the proportions of like a bat, the tinier legs and the big stocky stomach.
Yeah, I think I didn't notice that's probably what that was.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've kind of said what needs to be said.
The last thing I want to say about the movie is this final shot of Orlok dead, fucking the female lead, and she dies too. So they are two corpses. His dick is still balls deep in her, and he's like, I could not stop laughing, and I was like, Oscar.
This is a great movie. If you like gothic horror, then this is a must-see.
Absolutely.
If you like gothic romances too, this movie isn't a romance between like any character and Dracula by any means, but it is a story.
Well, it's not a functional romance.
Yeah.
You know, it's very rapey.
Yes, this movie is essentially about a woman trying to overcome her creepy stalker who has superpowers.
Yeah, but one of the details I liked, she has to consent to him fucking her or he can't, unless she invites him inside.
Yeah, he has to be invited in. He has to be invited in. And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, where can they find you, Count Jackula?
Well, you can find me here every weekday, streaming between the hours of 7 p.m. and possibly into the wee hours of the night. You know, we generally start between like 7 and 8, so check around then. And if you want to follow me on social media, there's really only one platform I truly use, and that is Blue Sky, where you can find me at Count Jackula.
Y'all know me. I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on Twitch, Instagram, Blue Sky. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, if you made it this far into the video, then I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag VladTheImpaleHer. Use the hashtag VladTheImpaleHer in your comments somehow. That way I know. That way Jack knows. That way the whole world knows the real reason he's called Vlad the Impaler.